I thought the future would be cooler. I thought the future would be cooler.
Welcome back to Learning is the New Working, a podcast series about the future of workplace learning and how we're all going to get there. Our goal is to help you build a learning-focused culture that fosters what Peter Diamandis calls the agility quotient. That is the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn new skills super quick. Perhaps the critical strategy in the face of the incredible disruption stalking today's workforce. So here's a headline. Sales organizations spend more than $66 billion annually on sales training and sales enablement technology with little or no results. Yup, sad to say, 60% of sellers don't meet their quota. Productivity's been flat for 15 years despite wave after wave of sales automation. That sounds like something the Learning Futures Group can learn from and needs to investigate. To help us dig in, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce you to Sanchita Sur. She's the founder and CEO of Emplay and has authored several books on the use of data in the learning and sales enablement space. She's definitely qualified to help us think this through. She's been working for over 13 years in enterprise performance management, process consulting, and direct sales environments. She's advised C-suite leaders in Asia, Europe, and North America on business strategy and operations, and she worked at KPMG, Cable & Wireless, iGate, BTS, and Blue Shield of California in both management consulting and account management roles. She's responsible at Emplay for strategy, sales, and product management. She holds a BE degree in electronic engineering from Nagpur University and a postgraduate diploma in industrial management from NITIE in Mumbai. In our conversation today, Sanchita brings real clarity and personal enthusiasm to the topic of data-enabled learning. She talks about how progressive companies are using data and AI tools to help sellers learn and perform in the flow of work. She also explains some of the much used and often misunderstood terminology that's bandying around the workplace right now. So if you don't know your AI from your deep learning or your bot framework from your neural networks, then apart from your secret being safe with us, you're going to get a lot of value from the next 40 minutes. You'll also learn why it's better to act now and start your AI-based learning initiatives immediately. This week's episode is brought to you by the wonderful folks at Intrepid by VitalSource, providing learning technology that's definitely setting the groundwork for the future. Scroll to the end of the podcast to learn more.
I thought the future would be cooler.
Sanchita, welcome to Learning is the New Working.
Thank you, Chris. I'm really happy and honored to be here in the podcast with you.
Great. Well, we're super happy to have you on the show because your work in applying rigorous data analysis to the learning process is a key interest of the Learning Futures Group and definitely of our audience, as is modern selling and sales enablement, which I know you also do. And you've also established an impressive enterprise class customer base for your company, where you've brought AI and data science to bear in support of sellers and learners. So I thought podcast listeners would find a real value in hearing from you on a couple of topics. First of all, it would be great if you could help us break through some terminology and help us understand AI, NLP, bot frameworks, deep learning, all these buzzwords that surround the space. If you can help us understand that would be fantastic. And I know it's a big ask. We'd also like to talk a little bit about data in learning and enablement generally, trends that you see in sales enablement. And then, of course, I'd love to hear about your personal experience as a female CEO in a Silicon Valley startup. So can we have a go at those?
Happy to be here, Chris. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Let's get started. As usual, we start with a sort of fairly quick fire round of questions to sketch a picture for our listeners of you and the work that you do. So you ready for that?
Yep.
Great. So let's go. Tell me what part of the world you live and work in and how come you ended up there.
Okay, I live in Livermore, California. We are in the Bay Area. The tech and the startup scene here really attracted me to the Bay Area, and I have not been disappointed so far.
And what did you study at college? What's your academic background?
I have a background in engineering, and then I went to a B school as well. I
Great.
love math and science growing up, and engineering seemed to be the path of least resistance for me.
So running a tech startup makes total sense based on your academic background.
Absolutely.
Do you see yourself as having a sort of personal mission statement? What gets you out of bed every day?
I think it is to live beyond my lifetime and to leave a legacy. That kind of really motivates me to do something that is cutting edge. And therefore, doing Me Too things does not excite me as much.
Oh wow! So really building a legacy. That's exciting stuff. Let's talk a little bit about data for learning, which is what you do for a living.
Mhm.
Why do you think learning leaders should care about data and data science?
I'm really passionate about this topic, Chris. I feel AI and data will change learning in many ways. I really believe in the 70-20 model of learning, where 10% of the learning comes from training, 20% comes from mentoring and coaching, and 70% comes from on the job experience and enablement. Most learning professionals who do believe in this 70-20-10 model believe in it, but they're not able to take control of that 100% of learners' experience. But now
Right.
AI and data will allow them to do just that. And therefore, it is really important.
So let
So,
me play that back to you. I think you're saying that with the tools that we're starting to develop and play with and deploy, we can have an influence over the period of time that where people are not in formal training scenarios, but are still getting some sort of assist from this technology.
absolutely. For instance, let's talk about mentoring and coaching. Most companies will have limited mentoring and coaching programs because they are expensive. They need a lot of effort
Sure.
and a
Yeah.
lot of collaboration. But AI, with these AI and chatbot usage scenarios, we can recommend to employees the right mentors and coaches that are available in the company. They can go ahead and connect with them. And while they are having these rich conversations that are full of tacit knowledge, we are able to record those conversations and build knowledge bases for the future. So when people ask similar questions, we are able to not only respond with content that is formal, but also conversations that are informal but very valuable.
Okay, that sounds really interesting, and I know we're going to dive into that in a little bit more detail. Who benefits from the tools and applications that you have, Sanchita? Is it learners, coaches? How do you see the benefit playing out?
I think it benefits, of course, the learners because they are now able to access highly personalized content in a highly conversational manner. Secondly, of course, the coaches. The coaches can have few coaching conversations, but they can use the bot to follow up on their behalf and then coach
Right.
them on, repetitive scenarios. But also, very importantly, the instruction designers and learning leaders, because when learners are using the bot, every click, every conversation, every question is being recorded, and it provides a 24 by 7 discovery of needs of the learners on the ground. You don't have to fire a survey every 1 year, 2 year to understand what the needs are. You know the needs every day, every minute, and you're able to better respond by an agile instruction design system where you're able to provide what the learners are really looking for in a highly programmatic way.
Interesting. Do you see that instructional designers and learning leaders really have a good sense of data and have a feel for the data that's available to them, or is this a kind of new is this a new frontier for them?
It is definitely a new frontier, but it is now gaining speed at an unprecedented pace. I've seen the latest GSS learning survey. Learning analytics and AI was the ninth, the 10th priority. 2019 survey shows it's the second and the third priority. So just the recognition of the fact that it is important and usable is half the job done.
Yeah, what I like about what you're saying is that I think for the longest time, people in the learning space have been preoccupied with data as a way to prove impact
Mhm.
and justify budgets. What I like about what you're saying, what I think you're saying, is that you can use data to actually tune the services and the support that you give the learners.
Absolutely. So learning analytics has always been, viewed as an end of the tunnel activity, but it is really the beginning of the tunnel activity. Data and analytics can actually tell you what are the real needs, what are the skill gaps, what are the intervention, processes, and hence you might be able to develop a better learning intervention program by doing analytics at the head end instead of the tail end.
I absolutely love this front of the tunnel analogy because I personally believe that certainly in my experience, a lot of programs get built that never really get consumed
Hmm.
because learning or formal learning is not the solution to the problem. And so I think people should spend more time deciding what not to do, perhaps, especially in a world where people are very distracted and very busy, and time is incredibly valuable. And so using data to decide what not to do and where to intervene and where not to intervene, I think is a really important shift that we have to make.
And also, Chris, learning in the flow of work concept that is really gaining steam. So, the
Sure.
earlier concept was you learn everything that you can possibly learn, and then go out on the field and then be able to remember what you have learned like 3 to 4 months in advance, right? Or you will need it one day, so why don't you learn all of it now? But that doesn't seem to be the case. People go out on the field and then they have a question, and every question is a trigger for a learning event. And so it's very important to give them the tools to quickly ask questions in natural language, stating their problems so that an intelligent AI system can diagnose the problem and the cause and be able to recommend that helps solve the problem than just treat the symptoms.
It really reminds me of the sort of empathetic interviewing techniques
Hmm.
in design thinking.
Hmm.
And it's quite amusing to me that we need artificial intelligence to provide us with the empathetic questioning we need in design. But I absolutely take your point. Could we talk a little bit about Emplay just before we dive into some deeper topics here? How many employees do you have, and what kind of skill sets do you need to have to help companies get better at their learning?
Sure. So Emplay is a data science and a conversation science company, and we build intelligent chatbots that prepare customers for autonomous sales, service, and learning situations. And so our team is primarily divided into data scientist capabilities, product engineering capabilities, and a lot of customer interaction and consulting capabilities. So at this point of time, we are a total of 40 people, including sales and consulting.
How long have you been in business, and what could you share, if anything, in terms of who your customers are and the kind of things you do to help them?
Yeah, we've been in the business for about 7 years now, and I'm very happy to state that all of our customers are Fortune 500 customers because the problem is more acute in large companies where we see that 70% of the sales reps are not meeting quota. When 70% sales population does not meet quota, large companies are talking about a couple $1 billion. So the pain is much higher, and hence the impact is much higher when you are able to bring together an AI system to help sales rep do their jobs better.
So, are you a services company, or are you a platform company, or an application company? How do you think of yourselves?
So we are a software company. We have products that diagnose sales problems, that recommend sales actions, and then provide conversational learning. So we are a platform. We have the ability for learning companies to come and convert their long format content into conversational chatbot based content, as well as we help organizations directly by telling them where their intervention needs are and what they need to plan for and how they need to plan for their enablement.
So I have to believe that setting up this technology requires a degree of